If you own the Z6 and you want to get the best cinematic anamorphic video, then check this out. What's up guys, Myung here from Prodigy Studios. Now, I've been in love with anamorphic videos for a long time. If you're a big movie fan like me, then you might love that anamorphic style video, but you might not even have recognized that it was anamorphic. So in case you don't know what anamorphic is, it stretches out your video and then it helps create awesome lens flare because of the special glass that's on it. It helps the bokeh become oval and it just gives that fantasy, unreal look compared to just like a regular video. So a group of directors, there's a lot of directors that uses this kind of look, and just to name a few, J.J. Abrams does it. All of his movies from Mission Impossible to Star Trek. Christopher Nolan does it, his Batman movies, and Quentin Tarantino does it in some of his movies as well. Now, of course, those lenses are $50,000 to $100,000 lens, so there's no way us normal videographers who shoots weddings and small gigs here and there will ever have a chance to shoot anamorphic. But from the past 6 years or so, they came out with adapters that goes on top of, in front of your lens. I own one called Anamorphic, and they did a good job. I mean, it gave you a nice anamorphic little lens flares and everything, but it was so hard to use because you had to focus with the Anamorphic Adapter first. And then after you feel like that's kind of in focus, you could tell it because the vertical, it'll stretch out the image vertically and it gets to a certain sweet spot. And then you would have to focus with your lens that's attached to it, hoping that the right combination of focus will give you a clear video. And even though the Anamorphic that I own came out with a rangefinder that goes in front of the lens, it still was very hard to focus. I would dial it down, and with the rangefinder I would, focus in and out just with that one rangefinder dial. But for some reason, most of my shot just came out kind of blurry. And it sucks because a lot of my gigs were like high-paying gigs and it came out kind of blurry, and I was a little disappointed with it, right? It was just hard to use. You just have to spend a lot of time to focus and get it dialed in. When a lot of my gigs are running gun, weddings and gigs and even small commercials, they can't really wait for you too much. Everybody's waiting on you, so you're kind of in a rush to get your gear set up for the shots. So it was kind of rough to use. But finally, year 2020, well, this lens actually came out last year, but finally we are in an era where Sirui made a anamorphic lens that's as easy to use as your regular prime lens. Look how tiny this thing is. I mean, it's ridiculously small. The anamorphic adapters are 3 times the size. It's huge. And then not to mention regular anamorphic lens for the movie cameras are even more massive and heavy. But look how tiny this guy is. Really cool. The cool thing about it is also that it's made out of metal. It's really heavy and it feels good in your hand. The dials are very smooth, and you also get an aperture control on the bottom right over here. And as you can see, it is very tiny. Look at that tiny little square. But this does the job. I don't know why companies didn't come out with this a long time ago. I don't know if it's the technology or the glass. I have no idea. I mean, it just looks like a very simple lens, right? It's got a nice anamorphic glass in the front that's always been around, and then it's just a regular prime looking lens. But finally a company just hooks us up with an awesome anamorphic lens. And I've been a Nikon user for a very long time, since 2003 with D70. D90 came out like 4 or 5 years later, and then now we could shoot video. And from then until like last couple of years ago, before the Z6 came out, Nikon just wasn't known to be a video camera. You could shoot video, and yes, you had 60 frames per second when other cameras did not have 60 frames per second at that time. But it still wasn't a good video camera. It didn't really have a stabilization. It didn't have video options that we really wanted in a video camera. But finally with the Z6, I've had a couple of reviews that I've made how much I love the Z6. I used my Panasonic GH5. I have the Blackmagic. I've used Sony cameras and just a bunch of other cameras before, and I love all of them. They all have their pros and cons. But finally, me being such a big Nikon fan, I am so excited and happy that Nikon Z6 has an amazing video quality and video feature. It could also shoot log with the Atomos, and now Nikon finally can shoot anamorphic. Now this lens from Sirui is a micro four third lens. They actually made it just for micro four third, Sony, and Fuji. And it's a crop sensor lens, so you can't really use it as a full frame look. But luckily, this little metal adapter is only like 20 bucks, if not less now. I'll put a link below if you're interested in this item. You put this here, and then this thing hooks up to the Nikon Z6 or any of the Nikon Z series. And it's interesting because this little adapter is made for micro four third lens to go into a full frame Nikon Z6, which is kind of ridiculous, right? Because I've actually got it and I thought, hey, maybe I'll have fun using all this my micro four third GH5 lenses on my Nikon Z6, yay! And then when I tried out all my lenses, they don't work. Those lenses are way too small to even be used as a crop sensor lens, but it is perfect for this guy. So maybe, I'm sure there's other lenses out there for the micro four third that could work, you know, with an adapter and so on, but all of mine don't work. But it works perfectly with this Sirui lens. And just a quick note, the company Sirui is also coming out with a 35mm very soon, next month, if it's not out already. Some people are already getting it in their hands. They only made it for micro four third, Sony and Fuji and things like that. So, but they are giving you an option to fit in other mounts, like the Nikon. You actually screw it with the actual screwdriver and a screw so that it doesn't move, because for now, even though there's a little knob that holds this lens together, it actually, let me show you real quick, it actually has a small little room, and it's not that much, but when it comes to anamorphic, that small little room makes a big difference, because when you see a large lens flare and it's just a fraction kind of, you know, misaligned, then that straight lens flare becomes a little crooked, and you obviously, it's gonna be very obvious that you see that crooked lens flare. So it's okay, because then I could easily just correct it by just touching it, right? So it's not a big deal, but it would have been great if it was just a perfect non-moving fit. But I'm not complaining, because we finally have anamorphic for Nikon Z. Yes. Okay, I love that fact. So I'm gonna show you some clips that I've shot just around town here in San Diego. I shot it with the log connected to my Atomos Ninja V. The reason why you want to use log with the Atomos V is because of the fact that it has a bigger bitrate on your video. That means that, especially if you have a sky that has an amazing gradient, whether it's a sunset or the blue sky, and if you color correct just a regular video right out of the Nikon Z6, if you do heavy kind of color grading, you're gonna start seeing artifacts, little square pixelation that goes across the gradation, which kind of sucks. Then you end up taking out the gradient grade, and you just use the camera as is. But the video that comes right out of the Z6, perfect gradient. It's just, you know, you can't really color too much into it. The log that comes in Atomos, it's more flexible for you to be able to color grade it to your liking. Of course, it's not as amazing as an RAW camera or a red camera, which is raw and has a massive amount of video information, but it's still good enough that you can have fun and get the color that you like without messing up gradients so much. I like to shoot my anamorphic or all my videos in neutral because of the fact that it's not so saturated like the standard, and you can't bring down the saturation without messing up the colors. And it's not as flat as the Nikon flat, which then you would have to color correct every single clip. But with the neutral, it's just right for me. It's just enough that I don't have to color correct it if I don't really want to. And most of the time, I don't actually color correct my Nikon videos, because I actually love the way it comes right out of the camera, which is awesome. So the Sirui lens is a 1.33 anamorphic, meaning that if I was to kind of explain it to a friend of mine, the regular 2.0 anamorphic from a movie lens creates an amazing oval shape bokeh. So when you blur out the background, when you focus close to a person and you blur out the background, lights or whatever circle thing that you see on the back, it stretches vertically instead of a standard, blurring out in a circle formation. So it stretches vertically, and a lot of people don't even notice that, but they just see how like beautiful that looks. So this lens is a 1.33, so it does stretch vertically, but then it stops like halfway from getting to that perfect oval shape that the 2.0 has. I'm not complaining. 1.33 is still amazing. It still looks great. The lens flare is out of control, and I love lens flare. I try to get lens flare in every video gig that I have and put it in there and try to impress them. Even though most people look at the lens flare and don't think anything twice about it. They're just like, okay, it's a lens flare. But the people that knows anamorphic will see that, holy moly, there's an anamorphic flare. So, hey, as long as you're happy with it, as long as I'm happy with it, it's all good, right? So the focus distance with this lens is about 2.8 feet. So it's not too bad. It's kind of the distance I'm in with my camera right now. So it's not too bad, but if you want to try to zoom in and get closer, let's say you want to crop just like the eye and the mouth, then it won't work. You could probably shoot it in 4K and then crop it in, but cool thing about anamorphic, this anamorphic lens, including other anamorphic adapters, is that you could put a diopter. It's a little glass that screws on top of it, almost like a magnifying glass, and it allows you to focus a lot closer. So you could get a ×2, ×1. There's different kinds of magnifying diopters for your lens, allowing you to focus even closer. But the downfall is that when you have the diopter, you can't focus infinite. So that means you can focus on the person and then roll the focus ring and then focus something that's far away in the back. The focus distance would be very short. You could focus on something here and then something maybe like, who knows, 5-6 feet away, and then that's it. So you have to take that out if you want to focus to infinity and make sure everything is clear. This lens is also, to me, very sharp. It's so impressive that you could focus and dial in and get a great focus on a person's face or anything that you focus on. So that's really cool. I really love how sharp it is when it comes to focus. So I could definitely shoot a whole wedding with just this lens. I haven't done it yet, but I am going to. Once this whole craziness is over and the weddings open up again, I'm gonna shoot a wedding, the whole wedding with this one lens, and hopefully that 35mm also, so since it's a little bit more wider. And I will share it with you guys, and you guys can let me know if it's cool or not, if we should, because that's a next level, right? Shooting a wedding anamorphic movie style, that's the way to do it. Alright guys, so that concludes my short little video. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.